Hello everyone, and welcome to this week's Talking Stick Show. And a happy Valentine's to those listening and watching. I'd like to welcome my special co-host. We have the incredible Laura Massey. Hello, Laura.
Hi Dale, hi everybody, and yes, happy Valentine's Day to everybody.
And today is a day of love. So how are you, Laura? How are things with you?
Yeah, really good, thank you, Dale. Yeah, I'm doing good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing really well, thank you. We came up with the idea last night. We weren't going to go forward for a show this week, but we decided to do it, and we're going to do this regular more and more. We've had a bit of a problem with Rumble as well for those watching. We were meant to start streaming at 7 o'clock, but it's now past. We've had a bit of an issue with the Rumble side of things. So let's go forward on today's show. So today we're going to be talking about the spiritual dynamics of relationships. So let's start, Laura. The actual word relationship, what does that mean?
It's a connection you have with somebody. And I think we wanted to talk about close relationships, intimate relationships, carrying on from obviously the sexuality show that we had with Andrew last week. So this is a natural follow-on, and it's come on Valentine's Day. So it's a good time to take a look at our close relationships and understand that in all relationships, but especially those that we're intimate with, there is a degree of spirituality that affects us. There is an unseen world that affects us within our relationships. I'm not saying whether that is good or bad, just from a neutral point of view. Anything in the seen world does have an unseen aspect to it. So I think what many people don't realise who maybe aren't spiritual, that just doing a little bit of spirituality in whatever form that takes can enhance your relationship. What do you think, Dale? So
there's no magic wand then to quickly go and the relationship's fixed.
Oh, light worker, Dale.
Yes, taking the piss here. So what might be good to go forward, and we're looking into that unseen aspect of relationships and how important it is to be responsible for the seen and unseen environment. Let's start with growing up and being born and our first impressions of relationship, because that has such an impact on you, who you are when you grow older. The subconscious being able to pick up things from relationships from parents or relationships from external sources. So let's talk about being a child. And so what are some of the things, Laura, for a child to experience, and what their understanding is of setting up the mechanics for being in a relationship when they're older? Let's talk a little bit about the child.
So the child comes into the world from one placenta into another placenta of their own bubble of reality into the world. And then various things affect them the older they get, as you know. So one of the big things is all the imprinting that we're receiving from our parents, however well intentioned, from the schooling system, from the system in general. So we start taking on all these conditionings and programs, and with a global narrative, the such that we have, it can affect us a great deal as we get older.
Yes, it can, and being aware of those subconscious programs we have. Even myself, when I'm in a relationship, I've been married for almost 8 years now. I think it's 8 years. Gabrielle will kill me if I get the years wrong. I think it is. So for my own personal journey with relationships, I have a lot of my father's, I'd say, programs still I'm working through. So when I'm in the relationship, I'd say something which my father did say when he was young, when I was younger, and so on and so forth. So let's talk about the ancestral karma of relationships before we go deeper into it. What does ancestral karma mean for giving it and passing it on, and how does it have an effect with the relationships, Laura?
Well, unless you're aware, you're spiritually aware, you've got a certain level of consciousness, and you're, say, doing the daily work. If you're going around in unawareness, ancestral karma, i.e. the debts passed on to you from your ancestors, is going to affect you in everyday life and also affect your relationships. So that's why people like Dale and I and others will follow a daily practice that we have, and spiritual hygiene and lots of other things to overwrite the karmas. First of all, it's about being aware of them. So karmas are handed down to us. This ancestral debt is handed down to us in our unawareness when we're born. When you become more conscious later on, more aware, more awake if you like, then you realise that you actually don't have to carry some of this debt that's put upon you. You really don't. There's so many things you can do to start to overwrite that debt, stand in your own power, stand in your sovereignty. One of those are revocations. Most of you watching this will have heard of Andrew's revocations and so on. That's a really big tool to start standing in your own power, because what you want to be is in charge of your own life and not washed about on the sea of life, and having to deal with this karma that's handed down to you, which can affect any relationship you have, close or not, or just how you are in your life.
Beautiful. And that's the understanding of when you're in program mode to when the actual I am present soul is there. So there'll be scenarios in the relationship where you'll be triggered, and noticing that trigger as a form of, say, your own karma, your own programs turning on. And for me, it's always being aware of that and looking back and seeing what triggers I actually have and what work I need to do on myself so I don't have those triggers anymore. And it's about forgiving yourself, knowing if you do something wrong in a relationship where you make a mistake, it's normal. Forgive yourself and move on. One of the biggest things I feel in relationships, a lot of people hold on to shit. And what happens when they hold on to it, it becomes really toxic, and it starts forming a real disconnection between the person or the relationship, the partner, and they start going at it. So let's talk about that. That when the friction happens where they can't let it go, let's talk about what happens spiritual there, Laura.
Yeah, well, what you're not doing is looking at your own stuff. You're not looking at your own programs. You haven't got that level of self-awareness, and that's something we all need to develop, is that level of self-awareness, so that we can investigate. And this is part of the self-healing, because in all of this, any relationship is going to improve the more you do the work on yourself. I mean, that has got to be the absolute cornerstone of all relationships, is the self-healing to yourself first, isn't it? So dealing with anything, whether you're triggered or whatever, is about you. So it's about how you're going to respond to it, and that's all to do, going right back to those inner programs and so on. And I've lost track of what question you actually asked me, Dale.
So we were basically talking about the programs between the I am presence and the actual programs from the parents and the ancestral karma going on there, and somehow it causes a friction sometimes. And when two people in the relationship can't let shit go, then all of a sudden it just escalates and it becomes real toxic, where you're basically exchanging karmic debt to each other and maybe creating other lifetime debt as well. That's what the initial question was, and expanding on that.
Yeah, well, holding on to toxic stuff is not good for the body anyway, isn't it? Because we are going to carry that anger somewhere in our body. So, and this does go back to what I was saying about the self-healing journey, and investigating why you feel that way and trying to pin down where that program started. And this is not done overnight. This is something that I'm still working on now, as you are, Dale, but I mean, it's taken many years to get to where we are now, if you like, with the degree of self-mastery that we have, but there's still much more work to be done. But part of that is learning the sacred neutral journey, to not be triggered. So to try and get rid of some of this judgment that we're holding about other people. And again, that is all the inner work.
That's it. And therapies and techniques like hypnotherapy is incredible for working on stuff from, say, karma or programs of when you grew up or triggering things, is to work on the subconscious, allowing the brain waves to slow down and allowing your subconscious to change a view, an idea of something, so it doesn't trigger you anymore. I feel as well with relationships, it's important not to give up. And especially if you love someone and the times are hard, if there's love there and there's true love there, I feel love can solve and help with anything, really. It's helped me in my relationship because we truly love each other. And sometimes people in relationships where they don't love each other, and we can talk about that as well, Laura. So let's talk about forgiveness, because I think that connects to what we were talking about so much, of how important it is and to move on and forgive.
Oh, well, forgiveness is one of those things you need to learn really early on to do. And if you're not, you're only damaging yourself. I mean, you could give out endless Facebook posts and meditations and things. Forgiveness is always the first one that comes up, but quite rightly in many ways, and all the angelic messages are always about forgiving yourself, but they are right. That is something, not just forgiveness of yourself, forgiveness of others, because you haven't got that, which is almost like a quality of love, then you're really not going to move very far. It's like trying to run like you do in dreams with those lead boots on. You're just not going to get anywhere if you're going to be held back by not being able to forgive somebody, because it's a judgment, isn't it, if you're not forgiving them? And we're trying to step out of judgment. And you're just adding, once again, more toxicity into your body with that, because all of these emotions and these feelings manifest somewhere in the body. We're not separate from our body.
Yes, and that's it. We're not separate from our body. We are the being who make the choice in the now. And that's why the inner work and having a schedule where you do self-healing, self-nurturing as part of your life, because without it, I would be unbalanced. And that's the truth of it. The inner work journey of doing it 6 days a week, an hour to 90 minutes a day, with joy, with fun, is to help me be more balanced, because at times life gets crazy, life gets stressful, arguments do happen, I get angry and so on. But me having the inner work schedule, the journey time where I can really feel good, feel relaxed, let go, release stress, is very important. And I think moving forward into couples who, a lot of people have, say, a wife or a husband or a wife, whatever, is some of them have so much stress with their own work, with life, having to support, and none of them do any self-healing. So let's talk about those people who don't do the work, and what can happen with relationships when people don't de-stress and stuff like that, Laura.
Well, they do get toxic because you can only push yourself so far. And I think you have to work very hard to not allow that to happen, because if you're both under a lot of pressure, because what you're talking about is people really are in survival. Many people are in survival, but if you're not getting the right balance in life, you're pushing yourself even further down that track. And that just puts so many pressures on a relationship, and then you start biting at each other and so on. And again, it's completely opposite to what we like to pursue, which is the self-mastery journey, which is the looking at yourself first and sorting out your own problems, because you can't help that other person either. You're not here to heal anybody. So even if your partner's becoming very toxic because of all the pressures put on them, there's only so much you can do or should do, because this is their journey and we can't step on another's journey either. So it's like you're saying, having that unconditional love and support and all the things that you would do, but sometimes people need to go through a certain amount of discomfort until they find they level out at the bottom and come up again, and then they've learnt some of the lessons that they needed to learn, because our partners are going through their level of karma too, and for us to try and take that toxicity away from them or try and heal them is not what we're here to do. We're
Yes.
not here to do that. We're here to help release our own toxicity and heal ourselves. And if they can do that too, then that's a wonderful, wonderful basis for a relationship.
Yes, greatly put, Laura. And that's it. Is I feel so. Let's talk with you saying that. Let's talk about some of the karma we can have when we have a partner. So say if we have someone and we go into a toxic relationship, the relationship starts out okay, but towards the end it turns really toxic and it produces a lot of karmic shit. So let's talk a little bit about that. What can happen? So for people listening and understanding the mechanics of what can happen when two people come together, is the past lives involved? What's happening there, Laura, with the karmic situation?
Yeah, it's a deal you made. Could be, many lifetimes ago. I mean, that every karmic interaction will be different. Every contract will be different. So it could be something that's set up many years ago and you've been intertwining with this person, over many lifetimes. You come to this lifetime and there you are, falling in love with this same being again. You could have completely swapped sexes or whatever, but you fall in love and it's all absolutely wonderful. And in my experience, sometimes you're even more drawn to these karmic beings than others. So you then you start to try and work out your karma within this relationship, because that's what you've agreed to do. And until such a time that you feel that you've done your karma, you may be becoming more self-aware, more conscious, and you decide you actually need to step on your dharmic path. Because if you want to do the self-mastery journey, you need to step out of karmic relationships. You've got to recognize them first of all, and then have the courage to step out of them, which, if you're in a very comfortable position, can be very difficult. And that's where the courage, commitment and discipline comes in once again, to step out and step on your dharmic path, which is your service, your contribution in service to light. So it, unfortunately, of course, or just the way it is, not everybody will recognise that they're in a karmic situation with a partner and that it's got toxic enough that they need to step away, and they stay in it and can be very unhappy. And there's no judgment on people. It's whatever your journey is this lifetime.
Yes, and that's it. So there can be that karmic negative exchange, or there can be the positive exchange where synchronicity aligns people up, where you start doing work and you start inviting the soul family in from actually doing the work, raising your frequency. I remember there was a story of a friend I had who had a reading with Andrew. I haven't seen this lady for a long time, but she had a reading with Andrew and she had past lives with this one guy, thousands of time, but they were like the most intense lovers. They kept just coming back for the love of each other, and they were like soul that just kept migrating back together again, and so on. So we can have both. We can flip the frequencies on both sides. We can have the negative relationships, the positive relationships. So let's talk about, which I feel is important, because I've seen this thread quite a lot in my journey, is when you have a couple who aren't awakened and one of them awakes. And I see it all the fucking time. And I always predict when I've met these people, they're going to break up in a year. Yeah. So let's talk about this and stepping on others' journey, because this is important. And I see it's like a common thing going on, not all the time, but one person will awaken and their partner's not awake. And that person will try and step on their journey, think they're better than them, but think they're the ones who are in the wrong. So let's talk about that, because I've seen that many times.
Been there, done that, yeah. Okay, so yes, there is this spiritual arrogance in the beginning, which unfortunately is all the light worker programming, isn't it? So you want to go in and as you say, suddenly, I can teach them this. They can do this with me. They'll want to do this with me, and then they will be a better person, because obviously they're not good enough now for you, because you stepped into this, you've taken on this cloak of spiritual ego, and Okay, you could say it comes from a place of love, but actually it doesn't. It comes from a place of ego.
Comes from a place of love and shite, not love and light.
Yeah, absolutely. Or over love and light, maybe too much in the love and light thing. And boy, this can be a long journey. It can be the long journey, and if you can come out of all the light worker rubbish and come into the self mastery and the self healing, I'm always going to talk about that, because that's where the journey really begins. And then you make your own choices based on your own needs, and it doesn't mean that you're selfish, and it doesn't mean you're being unkind to this person in any way, shape, or form. It means you're putting what you need for your own journey first, because that is why you came. And if you're going to make yourself into more of a self-healed, self-realized being, then you're going to contribute far more energetically to that person, whether you're with them or not, and to all relationships in your life. Your duty, or I don't know whether I like the word duty, but for want of a better word at the moment, if you can just focus on raising your own level of awareness and your own consciousness, then that is going to be what will affect all your relationships in your life.
Yes, and that's it. And so we've got a question, Laura, from Sarah Lane, about how do we recognize these past life lovers on this Valentine's Day? So how would we recognize them? I'll let you answer that one.
Oh, obviously I can only speak from my experience. I don't know. There's something that you can't stay away from, even though maybe part of you is going ding 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 ding. No, you shouldn't do this. There's like sometimes a bit of a conflict, but just in my case, yeah, there was the instant gratification of having that person in your life. And I'm not sure, because maybe every situation is different.
Yes.
But how we do it, well, I also the patterns, Dale, surely we recognise them through the same things crop up time and time again in the relationship that become issues.
Yes.
Because if you don't learn them, you're going to have them again.
Yes, and that's the great universal joke, I'd say. For me, on my own personal journey with that, year after year, I was lying to myself, and there was something I needed to do, and I just kept avoiding it, and the universe kept throwing it at me until it got more intense, until I dealt with it, and it was quite easy to deal with it, but there was such a big extent of me thinking it was so hard to get rid of this. So I've experienced that personally, and anybody in the chat who's experiencing that, if you want to share your own experience with it, about something which has crept back through the years and gone, hi, I'm still there, knock, knock, knock. Yeah. I'll just push you away. Lionsgate, I'll just push you to the side. The next Lionsgate.
I'm not looking, I won't look at you. Yes, Sarah, red flags all around you, but you keep going for it. Well, look, Sarah, it's so difficult, because you've got to do your journey. So would I change anything I've done, even those, let's say 2 major relationships in my life didn't work out? So in what way didn't they work out? Well, maybe they did work out because they gave me what I needed to find the path that I wanted to go on. So maybe, although however at the time bad I might have felt that relationship was, or he was, and I was well into the shame, blame and guilt in those days, maybe because he was like I thought he was, without being too in depth here, maybe it gave me the courage to stand up and say, enough is enough, I'm going to look after myself now, I'm going to walk out on this relationship. So do I sometimes quietly say thank you to that person for being like that? Yes. That was part of the karmic interaction and something that I needed to learn, something that he and I probably set up together for my soul journey, for my learning, for the path I wanted to go on. So it really, really has to be down to your own heart space discernment on what you feel you need. Maybe it's not a lesson, you need this lifetime, but this is why we need to do the work, so we can listen to our higher selves, listen to our ancestors, get the guidance as well. And this is where the spiritual side really comes in, because they're working with you. The ancestors are always happy to communicate with you and help you with this and co-create with you, or the universe, or whatever it is, your belief system, great mystery, great spirit. That's where the spiritual side is really so important for you. I hope that helps. It's so difficult to give a quantitative answer on that one, because somebody else won't know the journey that you're required to make, or that you decided for yourself this lifetime.
Incredible. And there's just another question, that we've got another question from Lily. So can we resolve our part, or will both have to be resolved before progress is made? I'd say from my own view on it would be, the more work you do on yourself, because sometimes you can have two people who come together and they've killed each other a lot, or one person's killed the other, and you were basically, I'd say, you were contracted to come together, fix that relationship. So that's the end of that life karma, and that happens a lot with people who have incredible relationships. They do have up and down, but they're together for the rest of their life. And when they do cross over, they'll realise, holy shit, look at the amount of karma I fixed in that lifetime, because these two people have been coming back together. So I'd say it's different for everyone, like Laura said. It just depends on how much effort you're willing to put into yourself, and it all reflects about who you are inside yourself. And that's the main part here, and that's a great teaching here, is the more work you do on your traumas, your bad habits, your programs, the more dharma you're going to create in your own life. So you're going to be able to fix more of these karmic contracts going forward. Anything to add to that, Laura?
No, a couple of questions in the chat will be good to address. Another one from Lily.
Yep.
About the balance of a relationship and spiritual work when you have young children. And the spiritual change when you become a mother and father, that baptism by fire. Yes.
Hi,
spiritual
Lily.
work when you have young children. Well, Dale's a bit closer to that than me. I'm more like grandmother to younger children. But oh boy, I mean, I just include them in it without forcing it upon them, and Dale will talk about forcing it upon them. And the lessons he's learned from that. But for me, just the joy with my grandchildren, little simple things like collecting firewood. You don't have to say prayers over it, but just the joy of collecting firewood with them. Now I'm talking shamanic spiritual stuff here, because obviously that's what I do, and teaching the grandchildren the compass points. Maybe referring to grandfather's son. It's a difficult one. I don't want to imprint on them my beliefs. At the same time, we're missing that generational handover, the verbal handover, the stories and so on, because television and the global narrative has taken over so much of that. And I do really feel that not just parents but grandparents can play a really big role here, and talking about those who have passed on as being the ancestors, without putting any form of fear in them or any forcing them to any sort of belief system, but just making them aware that there is a natural world, going to play in the woods, talking to the trees without it being odd. My sons might think differently, but my grandchildren are far more receptive to it. So I think, Lily, from what I know of you, anyway, I'm sure you do a beautiful job of that already.
And that's it. And just something to add to that. So with relationships with children, I feel one of the greatest things you can do is if you have a father and a mother who are working together, being able to resolve their own issues, and the child sees that throughout the years, sees them not giving up on love, sees them working hard at it, working on themselves, that's one of the greatest teachers for me a child can see. And from my own experience, from me and Gabrielle working through a lot of things, we've basically stick together, we've gone up our ups and downs, but love has kept us together, and them seeing that as they grow up, they're going to have such a more connection with love. And we have the relationships where a child is grown up with a mother and father and they divorce, and there's a lot of say trauma for that child because they have to find the self-love within themselves. So from my own personal experience, Lily, as well, to add, being spiritual, doing the work but not pushing it on to the children is one of the most important things you can do. Usually when you put spiritual stuff too much on a child growing up from the age of 5, they just want to be kids. They just want to literally be kids. That's the most spiritualist thing they can possibly do. I've had it bite me in the ass where I've tried to get my boys to do ceremonies once a week or once every 2 weeks. It backfired on me and they hated it, and they started getting ceremony started becoming a negative word for them. So my own opinion on when growing up with spirituality and your partner's spiritual as well, allow the kids to be who they want to be. And if they do want to be part of the ceremony, they do want to do a meditation, that's fucking great. That's really, really good. But it's allowing them to make their own choices fully. And if you're both spiritual, your children might not be spiritual. And I've got to accept that fact as well. And we all have that inner martyr part of me, the light worker. When my children grow up, they're going to be mega spiritual, and they're going to be learning Reiki at the age of 10 and all of these concepts and ideas. So my own personal advice was, if they see you doing work on yourself, looking after yourself, doing ceremonies, that in their subconscious is one of the best things we can have for the children. Then they can figure out what they want to do when they go through puberty. Do they want to follow up and ask you, can I be part of the ceremonies more? I'm really interested in this. So I think being ourselves is the important thing here, and not pushing it on the children, especially if you have a father and mother who are spiritually involved. A lot of times the children would just resent spirituality when they grew up. Like, my parents were spiritual, man. I fucking hated that shit, so I'm going to grow up and do the absolute polar opposite, because I was like that with my parents. Whatever my parents did like, I used to hate as a kid. The inner rebel. Anything to add to that, Laura?
Yeah, just have fun with them. Make it all fun. Most of it, as far as possible, fun. And we forget how to be children when we're older, and that's something we need to go back and do, whether it's you go on a rope swing like I did the other day or with them, or anything like that. Just teach them the joy in life and the joy in little things, and I'm sure you know that. There's another question coming on from Raphael.
Yes.
Well, he's got two. We'll carry on with the child question for the moment, if you want. Yep. The kids ask for spiritual guidance, asking what Jesus and God.
So yeah, just something to add to that as well, Lily, would be, like Laura said, how important having fun is. Just literally having fun, having those memories together, creating a fire, making it lovely, and making sure those moments become a regular thing, and not trying to expect too much of yourself, and not trying to expect the outcome of what they're going to be like and what's in the future. I'd say with your own certain situation as well, you've got a lot of love between you both, and you're very evolved people. I'd say just enjoy it, enjoy the life, and it's just about having that fine line of coming together, forgiving, and like myself with Gabrielle as well, I have to be doing this regular life review on myself and my relationship with her, because I want to better it for myself and for my children. So yeah, great question, Lily, really, really cool.
Yeah, well said, Dale. Right, so I've got the hang of what Raphael is asking here. So we're talking about, it's a difficult one, Raphael, because you're talking about your niece is spiritual, but her parents say no to spiritual knowledge, and it really depends on what their view of spiritual knowledge is. I mean, you can take your niece out into nature, you can, like we were saying about with the children, just talk about all the joyful things in the world and have fun. And also remember, and I have to remember this too, that the more we're working on ourselves and raising our own frequency, the more in the unseen world that is going to positively affect these children. So I think it's not too worried too much about that, about trying to impart your spiritual knowledge onto your niece, because no, you can't undermine what her parents want. That's always a very difficult thing, and obviously I always consider that also with my own grandchildren. But there is a lot of work you can do in the unseen when children, especially if you're related to them, like my grandchildren. As the grandmother of the now, I can do work in the unseen when they're, say, under puberty age, just protection work and so on. And I do seek the permission of my sons, because that's absolutely right to do so. But you do have to go along with what the parents want as well, Raphael. In my view, Dale, what do you think?
Yes, definitely. Allowing the parents to be the guidance for them, as they were spiritually contracted to do that positive, negative in between. Then allowing the being to make its own choices as it goes through the puberty. The I am presence starts forming. They become source disconnected. So when they're younger, they are source connected. They go through the puberty process and become source disconnected and have choices. And it is important, I feel, for obviously spiritual cleanliness. Hygiene is important. You've got a responsibility to clean out your own children's room, your home, make sure their dream space is clean and cleansed at all times. And make it a nice environment for them. I highly recommend, for people out there who are wanting to clear homes, have a ceremony on the house where you're bringing love back into the house. You're bringing happiness. You're removing all those times where there's been negativity, there's been friction, there's been crying, and you're allowing a song to come into the home again. And that song is very important at bringing in children and allowing these children to come into a love space. And I have my arguments with the children and the kids, and they tell me to F off sometimes, and you know what I mean? It's just fun. But sometimes it is polarized, and we have to be responsible for that. But there has to be a fine line of stepping on a child's journey and not pushing them to be someone they don't want to be.
Oh yeah, totally. I love that, Dale. Did you say a song? Like music coming?
Yes,
That's
yeah.
Beautiful. Which actually makes me think with children, oh yes, please let's be creative. You know, so much more. Let's bring back more music. We should have that more in schools. I know a lot of schools do it. I'm not knocking teachers or schools. It's just, let's have some of the creative arts and so on, and let children express themselves in so many different ways. You know, I know they do meditation in schools now, but also like growing things and learning about wormeries and insect houses and the natural world. Let's not lose touch with the natural world, because the children love it. Children absolutely love that. So what about asking her what her thoughts are, or is that crossing a boundary, Sarah? Oh, I don't know. I sometimes ask my grandchildren what they're thinking. Depends what the intention is behind your question. Are you wanting to change what she's thinking or they're thinking? Are you wanting to make it wrong and put your own view on it? Because we're trying to bring up sovereign beings here and teach them to be sovereign. And their views must be accepted even if we don't agree with them, because that's what being sacred neutral is. So it's not crossing a boundary, but it would be if your intention was to make what they're thinking particularly wrong. And of course now somebody is going to say, supposing what they're thinking is wrong, or is not with love for all sentient kind. Or maybe we could just gently explain, give them the choice of another point of view. What do you think, Dale?
Yes, definitely. And going back onto the relationship aspect of it with the children, I'd say having a regular chat with the partner would be important, where you're allowing yourself to come into a nice environment where you're feeling good, make sure it's an environment where you've done some work before, you've relaxed, you feel calm, you're knowing you're going into that environment able to listen. Because there's some times in life where you are tired, you are pissed off, you are moody, and the last thing you want to do is go in and start discussing things. So I highly recommend for people out there with children, one of the best things you can do is regularly have those meetings together, have ceremonial time together, where you're really expressing love with each other, with yourselves, and the children are going to heal so much from that. They heal so much from their parents working together and working in love, and that love can really protect them as well when they're younger. The more work you do on yourself, the more releasing and traumas you go through, the more protection over the children naturally happens without having to force. And I feel storytelling as well is important, and having that storyteller aspect to the children as well, regularly telling them stories about mystery, adventures is important, to let them use their own creation in their own mind, to have this beautiful manifestation of using that imagination. Do you remember, if you want to comment in the chat, those times when you were younger where you used to dream about certain things or think about certain stories and it was so magical, or those movies you had where you just thought and it was beautiful, those different aspects. So is there anything, Laura, you want to go on to next as we diving into this relationship on this Valentine's Day? And again, happy Valentine's to everyone watching. Hope you're having a great evening, afternoon, wherever you are in the world.
Hope you are, and thanks for coming on and all your great questions, Raphael, Sarah and Lily and so on. Right, now I'm just going back to Raphael's question I saw earlier. I don't see the point of forgetting a person that you spend years with, sharing your inner parts, then you forget it. No, absolutely not. You don't have to forget them, but you've got to get it I think you're talking about if you've left them. Maybe that's what you mean, if you're no longer together. No, but everything's in context, isn't it? So there's a for me, that, like I think I said earlier, there's a degree of thanking them, thankfulness, gratitude that they were in your life, and obviously at the time when you were together, you know, there were good bits, and hopefully lots of good bits, and you learnt from each other. But at the end of the day, you're two souls on your own journeys, and that can't be forgotten in all of this. So I've had one over 20-year relationships, and one just under major in my life. I value those people now. I value their part in my journey, and I say thank you for your part in my journey. Sometimes I say it quietly, but that they helped me be who I am now. Both of them, and other people in my life. I'm just talking about two close relationships, and many other people in my life, parents and other relationships, so on, have taught me to be who I am now. Or with them, we have co-created situations from which I can expand my knowingness and my consciousness, and that's what I want to do. So don't forget, but just always have it in context. We can't get dragged back into the things, because for me, evolution is we move forward. Organic, natural evolution. It's about it's about the now, yes, but it's about where we're going to. It's about the future, and that is so exciting.
Incredibly said, Laura. Well, great words. So for everyone watching as well in the chat, if you want to interact or ask myself and Laura a question, go ahead. And for those people hiding, you can go into the chat and post a comment, and we can see it with the great technology we have. So for those who haven't posted in the chat who are watching, feel free to post in and say hello, just checking in. And we are live on Rumble as well. We are on the Galactic Historian page live about 10 minutes ago. We had a bit of an issue with that. So if you know about Rumble, or if you don't know about Rumble, so we have a new platform. We are on Rumble, which is basically an app you can download and type in Galactic Historian. So what's going to happen on Rumble, we're going to be able to produce content we're not allowed to say on YouTube. So there'll be all sorts of conspiracy content, there'll be all sorts of extraterrestrial content, galactic content, all of the doomer and gloomer shit, lots of swearing, and there'll basically be no barriers for that. So if you're not sure about Rumble, download the app, it's free, get yourself signed up and add the Galactic Historian, follow it, and we've got a lot of stuff coming up, a lot of crazy cool shit coming in the future. Anything to add to that, Laura?
I think crazy cool shit says it all.
Yes.
Go on.
A place where we can say shit, and
Yes.
because at some point you're not allowed to swear much on YouTube. They're going to make that a kind of a big thing next.
Yeah, it's hardly swearing though, is it? Well,
Yes, there we go.
not much. So, so Raphael, I love what you said earlier. You forget them and you forget a part of yourself, right? Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know whether forget would be the word. Like I said, you put it all into context and you move on. If you're trying to force yourself to remember, I'm trying to see the why you would do that. So what purpose does it serve for your own evolution? And we can forget parts of ourselves. Some parts of myself that or soul shards, whatever that I've dealt with. I will remember them from a learning point of view and send them love and then move on.
There we go. And that phrase which Andrew said a while ago, which has stuck through me for a long time, is seeing the past as a teacher, the present for your own creation, and the future for inspiration. So seeing all the past as a great teacher. And what have you learned from the past? So yeah, great questions, guys, and great content.
What about the phrase forgive and forget? Yeah. Well, it's not a bad idea, isn't it? Certainly the forgive. And forget, yeah, because if you keep bringing it to mind, again, what purpose is it serving? What's the intention behind not wanting to forget it? Have you got anything to add on that, Dale?
Yeah, so not wanting to forget, I'd say with memories, if it holds charge for you and the memories doesn't feel good, then you have to be responsible and meet that with your own awareness. So what I regularly do is look back at my past and things which hold trauma and memory which holds trauma within me or triggers me or makes me give that shiver, or we have those memories which give us that weird feeling. It's important that we go back and start fortifying those so they don't hold that frequency within us anymore. Highly recommend is learning a skill set like psychic surgery or Reiki or anything like that, or you can do backwards in time treatments, and you can start changing the past from actually doing treatments on yourself and the negative things which happen there. So I'd say forgetting, I don't think you forget stuff. I think you'll always remember because it'll be in your DNA memory, it'll be in the Akashic record, you'll be able to view it at times. But I feel when you've learned and done the work on it, it doesn't hold charge anymore. So you can remember it and it doesn't affect you anymore. And this, obviously, there are times where we have really bad trauma, and I've worked with a number of people who have severe trauma, and that's a different story. It takes a lot more stuff to do that. So yeah, I'd say forgetting isn't the right word for that. I think you'll always remember it, but it's where it's going to put you into polarity, yes or no. And if it does, then you have to be responsible for it.
Brilliant, Dale. Absolutely brilliant. Yeah. Does it trigger you still?
Yes, there we go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Great question. Really good.
Yeah, really good question.
So moving on, Laura, let's talk about the classic relationship of the narcissist and the empath. So let's talk about the mechanics, because this is quite a common thread within the world, that we have someone who is a very empathic, very sensitive, and they meet a guy who's a narcissist. So let's talk about that and the spiritual mechanics behind that. And if you know any experiences from that and had that in the past, share it. Let's have some fun.
When you become a doormat. Okay, so that's if you're the empath. So empaths are drawn to narcissists because they think they can heal them. So again, we know that from what Andrew says, wearing the badge of I'm an empath is not a what does he say? Sorry, I've had what Andrew called a brain fart moment. It's not a badge of honour. There we go. It's not a badge of honour to be an empath, sadly. I know for a lot of people who think it is, who can empath a lot of things. So because what you do is you then open yourself up to being abused, really. And if you go in thinking with a narcissist that you can change them and heal them, and especially with your newfound Reiki master training, that you can go in and make them better and they won't be narcissistic anymore. No. But from a spiritual side, hold on, I'll come back to that. There's a question, define narcissist. Okay, so I'll just go to, from a spiritual point of view, that could quite often be a contract that is set up for you. And did you ask me also, Dale, what's happening in the unseen world?
Yes.
Well, the empath's ancestors are going, oh no.
She's done it again. She's found another one of these.
What is she doing? Will she never? Or he? Okay, Let's be fair. But from my, from I don't even want to say from my experience. Okay, but yes, it's like, how long are you going to take to learn this? That's the ancestors saying to you, how long are you going to take to learn this? And okay, define a narcissist. Oh God, there's so many definitions you could have. So there's a degree of arrogance. They rarely say sorry. What's for me, there's such deep trauma that's never been addressed or can be addressed, that they have this outer ego, this outer shell that you can't get through in any. You can try everything, so you end up in some ways taking on a bit of that narcissistic energy yourself, simply because you're put into this form of survival, and you try all different ways to try and get your message across or to be heard, because often you're dismissed. What you're saying is either ridiculed, it's put down, you're gaslighted. You've all heard of that term, I'm sure. There's many different ways. You're laughed at. If you're sensitive, you're told that it's only a joke. You shouldn't take things so seriously. You're not heard. You're dismissed, and it's very frustrating. And as I say, you turn to all these different ways that you're trying to survive in. So you're either shouting, or you go sulky, or you just try anything to try and make yourself heard. And how else would you describe a narcissist, Dale?
I'd say it's someone who will never be responsible for themselves, and someone who has a form of, I'd say, emotion, a tiny bit of form of emotion, but at the end of the day, everything will be worked around them. And they'll make sure it's worked around them, even if they'll try and plan things where it sounds good but it's not, it's all in their favour. It's basically a mastermind, and they are very smart, and I do have some narcissistic tendencies, what I've worked on in the past. I hold my hands up, and that again is father ancestral karma, and a lot of men out there have the father who was a narcissist, or maybe they weren't fully the narcissist but they had aspects to them. And again, that's ancestral karma passing down. I've had dealings with like a person who in my life, in and out my life, and I always had that lesson of he just turned on me again, where it was basically like abuse, and it was all woe is me all type stuff, and you should be doing this all the time, and they never ask you how you are. Like you talk about shit, and they communicate differently. They don't ask how you do, and you don't have a regular conversation. It's just a bit weird, and we can pick those people up. And I've had a friend who I've had to let go of because, again, I brought him back into my life, and he just full on turned on me again. And I was like, fucking hell, this is why I didn't talk to you for a long time, because you haven't fucking changed. So I'd say a narcissist, Laura, is someone who just doesn't respect other people and wants to control everything and have it their own way. And that's just the way it is in life. There are people like that.
Absolutely. And I think, for me, I had to watch myself. I didn't realise until afterwards that I'd actually taken on some of those tendencies in order to survive. But you realise that at the end of the day, they were only temporary tendencies, whereas the narcissists, really there's no getting out of it. I mean, I think anything you read on narcissism really is, if you've met a narcissist, run the other way, really. I mean, you're not going to be able to heal them. I was thinking that I could. And Sarah, yes, often they are amazing in public, yeah. To other people, they come across really well, and then behind closed doors it can be different. But not always, and definitely like to be in control of things. And yeah, I agree, Dale can't take responsibility for anything, and yet the blame is always someone else's.
That's it. And it's I'd say my advice to people as well in relationships would take your time with someone. When you're about to date them and go on dates, take your time, don't rush into things. Get to know them and at least spend a few years with them before you want to then engage in children, or you want to go forward into marriage. I think everything's a bit rushed nowadays, and I think people rush themselves into relationships. And my own advice from my own years of being in a relationship would just take your time with it. There's no need to rush. It's not a race or anything like that. Just so you know how comfortable you are with a person, if you want to spend your rest of the life with them. Or if you have a year with them, they turn into being a big narcissist or a horrible person. You're like, fuck, I've got a child with this person now. But again, this can connect to karma as well. Some people can come together, have a child, and that's a huge karma being released and being fixed. So there can be positive things about someone coming in fast and having a child with the person. There's a lot of karma stuff going on there as well.
Or not even having a child, just people coming in maybe not your normal standard style of relationship, but with different situations, but you're drawn together. And there can be a lot of judgment from maybe the non-spiritual community or the outside world, who might think a certain situation is not acceptable, and yet what they're not realising is that this couple, these two people, have come in to find some karmic resolve, and it's necessary they do that. And if you're genuinely following your heart or listening to your ancestors or anything like that, you've got a degree of spiritual connection, and you'll know that you're doing that. And you'll sometimes you have to deal with these projections, okay, from other people related to your relationship. They're not in that relationship. It's not their karma that you're working out. It's your own karma. So as long as you're not causing harm to another human being, and you're not, I can't say hurting somebody, you see, because that seems a bit different, because in your unknowingness you might be, but not intentionally hurting them, and you are following your soul journey, and the other being is following their soul journey and not doing harm to it or treading on the journey of another sentient kind. There's nothing wrong with, I don't even know if wrong's the right word. You need to pursue this if you're gonna resolve your karma.
Yes.
Yeah.
And not, I'd say, very, very good point. And not having that, say if you're with someone and their friend doesn't like you, or they're projecting at the person who's now with them, it's important that you let people make their mistakes with people, and you kind of let them go and let them learn the lessons themselves. There's a time and time again where there's stories of people going into a relationship and their best friend doesn't like the person in the relationship, and it causes a lot of hate between soul families, and all these projections come in. We had on the couple show, we had a lot of stuff where we were dealing with that. So just, if someone doesn't like the person you're with, they can go fuck themselves, in another term, unless they're hurting you, unless they're physically abusing you or anything like that. That's a different story, and of course you've got to step in then. But it's allowing everyone to make their own mistakes. And if they're in a relationship with someone you don't like, then that may be some work you have to do on yourself, because there might be karma between you and the person as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's your choice, it's your journey, it's your choice. And projections are an interesting one, because you can have projections from exes, you can have projections from someone at the office who fancies you, you can have projections come at you all over the place. And projections can, in the end, form like a sort of an entity, like a sort of become a psychic attack, all of which I've had to deal with. You probably all had to deal with. I learned latterly really what was happening and how these psychic attacks actually manifested in my body as different uncomfortable conditions, and how to deal with these psychic attacks. And at times they've almost whooshed me out of my bed. They've come in so strongly. And at times like that, I've had to up the daily practices and the spiritual hygiene and so on. But projections are actually quite... they do take form, don't they, Dale? They do actually take form.
And they can become debt, and they can become karma placed onto you, which you were unknowing about or didn't want to agree to the karma. And you can push karma on people when they don't want the karma, or they're even not contracted to it. This is when you step on someone's journey, a prime example, where you're basically forming karma against them or with them when you weren't spiritually contracted to do that. And that's why it's important to allow this free will to happen. What would be a nice question for everyone to answer would, what does Valentine... So we're on Valentine's Day, and it's a strange day for me because I get it. It's nice to have that concept, but there's a lot of, I'd say, money behind it, of the industry making a lot more money on this day. It's a money where lots of restaurants and people get paid a lot more. So it's a bit like Christmas, isn't it? It's this concept of this day where we're going to have fun, we're going to go on a date and we're going to make love. But for me, it's allowing yourself to bring that Valentine's Day into more of the days. It's not just that one day where you're like, right, I'm going to be able to have sex today, finally. One day a year. She's going to put on the panties tonight. So if you're on the chat and you're watching on Rumble or Facebook or YouTube, please pop in the chat what Valentine's Day means to you. We'd really like to know. So any area you want to go forward on to next, Laura?
No, I'll just say about Valentine's Day, a bit like Christmas, and, well, not as much as Halloween, but it is a bit hijacked, isn't it, by the global narrative and by the system. And, yes, how shall I put this? So somebody said to me, what did I get from the man in my life for Valentine's? And I said nothing, because, like, he's really busy, and that's fine. We haven't known each other that long. And she said, well, that's because he's good to you every day. And he is. Every day of my life, he's been really good to me. So I don't need a special day to have that. And I'm not disappointed. But having said that, look, I'm not decrying anybody who's gone out and celebrated Valentine's Day together, and it's like your own personal choice. But I look at myself, how I would have been the last 40 years, and how upset I would have been if I didn't even get a card or so on. And then I look at, the let's just say, maybe sometimes there's more meaning and certainly more helpful in a lot of the jobs I've had done for me than in a card. But it doesn't mean to say I'm knocking it at all. But maybe some of the cards have been a bit empty in meaning in the past.
And that's it. There's the side of that. Then there's the opposite side where people have such chaotic lives that Valentine's Day gives them a day where they can actually... Oh, it's a day of love. It's my only day of love in the whole year, and for some people that's needed. But so it's seeing all sides of the equation, not judging, not being on one side, on the other side, and it's about how it means to you. If it means something great to you, then great. If it doesn't, it doesn't, and that's just the way it is. If we've got any other questions as well, anybody want to ask me and Laura a question here, we have an open chat room where we can connect, which is much easier than Zoom. We can actually see all your comments now. So I appreciate everyone as well commenting in and the feedback we've had so far. It's been a really fun show, Laura.
Yeah, it has. I like what you said. There's a character, I don't know my Shakespeare very well, but one of Shakespeare's lines is, "Nothing has any meaning less that you give it." So basically you have everything as sacred neutral, or you have it in that neutral position and you imprint on it whatever you want, which actually goes along with we create our own reality. And I like what Dale's saying. If Valentine is great and means something to you, then do it. It's like anything, isn't it? It's the meaning you put onto it, and that's how we create our lives. And how we should be creating our lives, or co-creating our lives, to bring us the best possible experiences for us.
And that's it. And what have you done for yourself as well? We're talking about relationship. What about the relationship to yourself today? Have you done anything to better that relationship with yourself? Have you given yourself true love, true happiness, where you've looked in the mirror and you've said, I love you, I'm here for you, I'm not getting all weirded out by me looking at myself. I know who the fuck you are. I trust you, I love even your shadow. I'm not affected or afraid of your own shadow. I'm laughing at that shadow and seeing it as a teacher for what it is, of contrast.
Yeah, absolutely. I love myself enough to go down the beach and have a coffee.
There we go, yeah.
Because that's what I love. Yes.
So
yeah,
guys,
absolutely, self-love. Yeah.
So we're going to have a few minutes. We're not a break. We're just going to play an advert for Scotland. So we have a trip coming up in July the 1st, where we are honoured to have the galactic historian walking on the lands of Scotland with us, being able to go into different areas. It's a 10-day bus tour starting on the 1st of July, where we have the galactic historian Laura, Matty, myself, Two Feathers Medicine, and we're going to have a 10-day pilgrimage throughout Scotland as well. And Andrew will be able to tell you the history of the land, tune into the energies and Akashic records there. So it's a unique opportunity, guys, to speak to Andrew and learn about more about his process. So I'm just going to play this video for you. And I'm going to go to the toilet because I really need a wee.
Welcome everyone to the Scottish Highlands Galactic Historian What's Your Purpose Tour. You're asking, what's my purpose? Your purpose is to go on this tour and discover the mystical, magical highlands and lowlands of Scotland. We'll be going from Edinburgh to Kirkwall, Inverness, all over the Scottish lands, as you can see on our incredible map. So I want to bring in Dale to talk about what is going to be included with this trip.
So what's included on this What's My Purpose tour? We'll get a chance to meet Andrew Bartis, and we'll be able to ask him what our own purposes are, and we'll be able to ponder and try and figure this out in 10 days.
And each and every day we will be driving and I will be talking about the histories of the places that we are passing and going to. And a part of these attractions are what we're including in this tour to make it the most memorable tour I've ever been on. Dale, what are the attractions and everything that's included?
A Scottish driver and also a guide. You'll have your own very luxurious Mercedes-Benz coach as well. It'll include all transport and ferries, 9 nights accommodation and 9 breakfasts and also dinner included as well. So for the attractions you'll get a free entry to Dunrobin Castle and Gardens. You'll also be tasting the fine whiskey at the Highland Whiskey Distillery tasting, where you'll be able to see the spirits being made and created. And we'll be also getting entry to Scarabray, the Garrigan Blackhouses village, Callanish Standing Stones, which are so famous throughout the world. And we'll be also going entry to the Armdale Castle and Gardens, where we get the chance just to relax and walk around and just enjoy the scenery and the outside and the history. Also, we'll be going on a half-boat day trip to Stafford, and we'll be also going to entry to Iron Abbey.
This is your opportunity to take the pilgrimage with all of us through the Scottish Highlands, the 10-day bus tour around the Scottish Highlands. On the first day of the journey of this 10-day journey.
Hello guys, so that was the Scotland tour. and we invite you to join us in a sacred space. How exciting, Laura, for July time to have Andrew over in Scotland and be able to poke him ourselves, give him a wedgie.
Oh yeah, this is going to be great.
Incredible. So anything you want to go to next, Laura, in this relationship show, this Valentine's Day special?
Okay, so how about, have we dealt with when one of you is spiritual and the other isn't? Yes, we did, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
And what about when you're both spiritual?
Oh, yes. Great question. Let's talk about that with my smooth radio voice.
How does that work? Because I was thinking if it's too early in the journey, how are you going to learn?
That's it. And when we have two people who are spiritual coming together, sometimes it can cause ego and spiritual competition. And this is something we have to be aware of. And I feel one of the biggest blocks we have from expanding on a global scale is allowing competition to be not part of our process anymore. I'm not talking about competition as in playing a football game. That's fun. That's just a different type of competition, real fun competition. I'm just meaning general where you both are in the spiritual game, you're both in relationships. And I've seen this time and time again where I've counselled couples and I've done psychic surgery sessions with couples where they've been in competition with each other and they've been competing with each other, and it's just ended up both of them giving up on it because they just, both of them wanted to be the better person or more spiritual and so on. So what would you recommend?
Lighter than you.
Yes, I have got more light than you.
You're like dimming.
So anything you want to add to that, Laura, about both being in a spiritual relationship? So let's say it for those listening. So say for a few people listening now who are in a relationship with someone spiritual as well, what advice would you recommend for them? What can we give them, something to set them up in the future so it doesn't cause blowouts or anything?
Self-work. Don't worry about the other person's journey, isn't it?
Yes.
That's where you've got to be at. Is focusing on your journey, and that it's and like I said earlier, it still means kindness and everything else that you have with that other person, but you really do need to focus on yourself.
Yes,
and that isn't selfish.
There we go. And focusing on your own work and allowing you to come into co-creation together. Maybe set up a ceremonial space where you go into some prayer grounds, say once every 2 months, and you start speaking to each other and giving each other prayers, honours to the ancestors, and making it a unique experience where you can both co-create with each other, watch each other grow, because that's so important to have friends and relationships around you, people who want you to actually fucking grow, people who don't want to be jealous about you or want you to not succeed. You want people around you who support you, who want you to grow together. And even though sometimes you may be better at something than the other person, it doesn't matter. We all have these different attributes and aspects of us, which we have to accept within each other. Anything to add to that, Laura?
No, I agree. I just saw Joel float in and float back.
So just to let you know who this, the great producer, we have Joel just popped in and he's popped back out again. There we go. Hey, how are you doing, Joel?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
We're good. We're having a lot of fun here today, Joel.
How I sound? Audible enough?
Yes, you sound great, man.
Yeah.
So how have you enjoyed the show so far, Joel?
I've only caught maybe 15 minutes of it because I've been wrangling Rumble. So and switch machines and a bunch of other housekeeping now I'm just putting off.
So your Valentine relationship with Rumble is not so good. Tell us about it, Joel.
It's the honeymoon period might be over, and we might have to talk about some inconsistencies. But we're working on it, and I'm determined to have this censorship-free relationship.
My brain was like getting confused then, but then I was like, is he talking about his own relationship? But no.
I wonder what karma drama Joel has with Rumble.
So Joel, yourself, you're in a relationship. So what does Valentine's mean for you then? What's it like for you in your world?
Oh, actually, could you repeat the question? I lost my audio here.
Yeah, no problem. So what does Valentine's look like for you, Joel, in Joel's world?
I'll admit, in my world, I have always resisted it pretty hard. Just at least the commercialized side of it. When it's sentimental, it's always nice. But out of the holidays I take off for the year, it doesn't rank high. But no, nowadays, we at least try to do something sentimental, cute, spend time together. But it's usually not feasible to do anything too extravagant. But we're pretty good about making date nights with each other on a regular basis, even though we both work full time. So.
Incredible. And that's it. It's making that time for each other. And that's something I've learned with working with Andrew and my schedule being busier and busier throughout the months, is that I'm having to get my 3D life more in order, where I'm having to set time aside, set a schedule. So I spend time with Gabrielle, spend time with my kids. And this is a good topic to go into, is scheduling and allowing ourselves to make sure we have a schedule. So we know what we're doing. We're not everywhere, one place, the other place. We have some sort of kind of understanding what we need to do in our life. And a lot of people get distant with relationships, don't they, with their partners from work. So let's talk a little bit about that, the distance. How can we kind of make people come closer together?
Schedule time for them as well. I mean, if we're going to have time for all these other things, then if they're the important person in our life, then they also have to, they do have to feature, because if you want something to work, you also have to work at it.
Mm-hmm.
So Joel, from you being in a relationship, what have you learned? What are some of the things you've learned, what you could help people with today?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind for me, here's a little taste of my light worker, is the days of the week, practicing the language of the days of the week in how you schedule your home life. And so what we were doing for a long time until work kind of changed our schedules is Friday was always date night, because I could be butchering this, but it comes from Freya's day. And so the goddess of love in Scandinavian lore, and I'm sure a lot of other lore for all the pagan traditions. And so that was always just the way I'd have this whole mantra thing where I start my own preemptive kind of like dad jokes, and I say, what is today? Today is Friday. Why is it Friday? And doing that every single day, and just kind of making that a mantra. And and just simple things. Sunday's a day of rest, to center yourself with the sun. Mondays usually when I do my scheduling, and I always picture as the way our ancestors waking up drunk from the weekend, partying for Saturday, and looking up and like, well, what's the moon? I need to know where I'm at right now on this harvest. And so that's how I live my life. It works out well for us.
Yes, and not looking at Facebook or looking at the Roman numeral time and going, oh shit, I've got to be at work in an hour. I've got to put on slave mode.
Yeah, turn off devices as often as possible, and that's going to open up all new possibilities.
Incredible. And so moving on then, Laura, is there anywhere you want to go in this direction? So we've talked about the narcissist of the relationship. Let's talk about intimacy then a little bit. Not too much go into the depths of being banned, but let's talk about how important intimacy is in relationship. And so why is intimacy important? That'll be the starting question. And we can maybe go into avenues of how can we make sure we have time for the intimacy, what intimacy is truly about. So if you want to go into that, Laura, first.
Intimacy for me, yeah. Well, I mean, it's a very natural part for me. I have very few hang-ups on that front, especially since the sexuality show. I mean, it's since learning what we've learnt as well with Andrew just last week. But no, even before that, it was a way that for me is a way of being able to express myself, my love, my also my own desires, my own needs, and also knowing it has an added bonus of raising your frequency, so makes it something that definitely needs to be scheduled, not missed out upon.
We need it. It's not a want, it's a need.
Yeah, it's both, actually.
Yes, it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
So what does it mean for you, Joel, the intimacy and expanding through intimacy?
That's a good question. I think it's important on many different dimensions of the relationship. For me, and probably us right now, I won't speak for her. We're trying to start a family, and so completely new dimension on intimacy right now. Definitely very removed from any of the what would you call it, the visceral sides of it or anything. The visceral side is there, of course, but now there's a lot of intention behind it. There's a we're working with a lot of different energies and trying to understand that now, and that's been very enlightening.
Incredible, man. And that's it, working on what's in the moment and what can you make special in that moment, allowing the egos to disappear, basically turning off the parasympathetic programs and allowing yourself to really go into a space of intimacy without expectation, without judgment, and just enjoying it. And a lot of people find it hard when they come to loving their partner because of maybe their programs when they grew up. Their father didn't really have that tenderly love, touch, feedy type thing, and that's something I've dealt with as well. Growing up, I've seen my own ancestral karma with the children where I'd hold back from always giving them love all the time, and there was aspects of me I needed to work on because that was my dad. My dad was never giving me a hug or never telling me he loved me or like that. And that's work I've done, a lot of work on that. I don't hold any resentment against him for that, but it's just the nature of the ancestral karma being passed down, and I feel the ancestral karma can affect our love as well, love making.
Yeah, you've got to do the work to overcome or to recognise some of that, haven't you? And I think a really big part of this for me as I've got older and delved deeper into the sexuality and the intimacy issue, and learning to love your own body, because we were talking about earlier about loving yourself, but actually appreciating your body, because the whole global narrative is set up, isn't it, that you're too this, you're too that, you're not perfect as you are. There's always something wrong in the global narrative with how your body is. So women have been on the endless diet, haven't they? And all sorts of things get projected upon us. And it would be good sometime just to stop and say, hey, body, I love you, thank you. And appreciate yourself, because I think then the more you appreciate and love yourself, but not in an egotistical way, but in a beautiful, natural way, the divine feminine and the divine masculine, when you carry that forward into intimacy, there's a natural raising of the frequency, because you're already stepping into that union, into that relationship with a lovely, loving frequency of yourself. And there's nothing wrong with loving yourself like that. And we're taught from early on, aren't we, that, oh, look at her, she thinks she's great. Well, yeah, go on, think you're great, because that's partly what will carry you through life, not in a better than way, not in a competitive way, but in a way that says, I'm part of the universe. I'm created by the universe. I am the universe, or I am, with great spirit walking through great mystery.
Incredible. And that's it, Laura and Joel, finding yourself as a non-agenda being, where you're not bound by being a male or being a female. You're just a being who's connected to the great mystery and the great spirit within you at all times, and you have many different aspects within you, and not trying to label yourself in any way, shape or form, and allowing that intimacy when you go into it. Start allowing yourself to come into oneness, and I feel that's the best, like going forward for orgasms and everything like that, is allowing both of you to come into a oneness state where you're expressing yourself. You're not bound by visualization, you're not bound by porn programmings or bending someone over and doing like a porn position or anything like that. You're just going into a state where you're healing each other, and you're healing each other through this intimacy state. And when you have that through true form of intimacy, it's incredible. It's so different to the regular, as Andrew calls it, the wham bam thank you ma'am stuff. It's about building it up, allowing yourself to do a bit of role play, foreplay, slowly maybe giving each other a massage before, just slowly build up the energy between you both. And like, if you want to watch the sexuality show we did last week, highly recommend it. Did you enjoy that show, Joel and Laura?
Yeah, I think it was definitely, so far it's one of our most viewed shows, for not even been out for a week. So that is responded well. And then I found it super enlightening, and definitely in depth.
Indeed, it was deep. It was incredible, guys. Yeah, go ahead, Laura.
I was just going to say, if you go into the bedroom, if you're going to have that intimacy, thinking that it will fix you, I think that's only a temporary solution. If you go in there already fixed, or as fixed as you can be, or as just happy, or in the right frequency, then I think you're going to have a far more rewarding time.
Yes, definitely. And going into who you are, that being where you're in that heart-spaced awareness, where you feel good, you're happy, you're in a nice rhythm, and it's a natural you. It's who you're meant to be, and allowing yourself to go into that natural form. Incredible stuff. So those on the chat and those watching, if you have any questions for myself, Laura and Joel, or how's your intimacy? Is there any stories you wish to share? So Laura, where should we go from here? We've got just under half an hour left of the show. So where can we go from here?
Okay, so Raphael's come up with not sure that's a question, is it? Let's have a look. I understand that my father was just like that. I think he means not affectionate, like you were talking about, Dale.
Yes.
Yeah, not showing much emotion, but I am like that because I want to be. I thought that being love was being gay, you know. Okay, so that was your perception of it at the time, and that, yes, it is a process of life. Yeah, so we can always flip these frequencies, can't we, as you were saying earlier, Dale, and it's recognising them, that we don't have to carry forward, whether it's karma, whether it's something we've just picked up from childhood. If we're going to recognise it is one thing, but then it's what you're going to do about it. Are you going to work hard to flip the frequencies on that? Are you going to allow it just to take over your life? And that is the sovereignty thing. But I mean, half the journey is, if you've recognised it, then it's almost it is your responsibility to make the choice to do something about it if it's not working for you.
And one of the main things there, which we talked about at the start, was forgiveness. Are you willing to do the effort, the commitment it takes to fully forgive yourself, forgive your dad, forgive your mum, forgive all those parts of you and memories you had which held resentment? And that's one of the greatest things we can do. Is there's a technique which Andrew calls forgiveness blanket. I use every spring equinox. I go into a state where I'll do ceremony and I'll do a blanket forgiveness. I'll forgive myself firstly, then I'll forgive other people's after that. And I'll do the whole year, which the past year, which it's all the shit's happened. So this year I'd start with, then if I can think of anything from the past as well. And as we start releasing and forgiving more and more, it just doesn't hold that charge on us anymore. It doesn't haunt us. I think that's the best word to describe all of this when we don't forgive people. The people can still haunt you, and they can still hold that feeling where you have that real shiver, or you get really pissed off when you think about them. So it's allowing forgiveness to be a process and not just dipping in and out by saying, right, I'm going to do my forgiveness work today. I forgive people for being horrible to me, and then it's done. And a lot of people I say, have you done forgiveness work? And they're like, yeah, I have. It goes, so give me an example. And they'll be, I said it once, that I forgive other people for being horrible. And again, I think Andrew's talked about this, the religion programming as well, that Father will forgive all of the sins by just saying one word, like the Catholic, no disrespect to Catholics at all. But there's a lot of, the forgiveness is so quick, but it's not. It's a process you have to go really, really deep into. So I think a great thing to talk about next as well is our own relationship. So myself, Joel, Laura, Matty and Andrew, we are in a relationship, a business relationship. So let's talk about that, because it'd be great to have our own experiences and your experience as well, Joel. So what is it like working with us and working with Andrew as well? Let's talk a little bit about what the backstory and how it is behind the scenes.
Well, I think, at first glance, it probably seems like a lot of antics, but we get a lot of work done, and we have fun doing it. And it's a incredibly enriching experience, because not only are we working on all this content together and interacting with the fans, and there's a constant spiritual practice in that, I think. And so to have your lifestyle intertwined with that on a work function or a passion function or whatever you want to label it, is pretty great.
And how is it for, great, Joel, brilliant put, bro. And how is it for you, Laura? How has it been for you? So we started working all together in October, was it? The end of October. And we've come in this together. How has it been for you? Let's put the curtains up for people.
It's been great. It's been really great, and especially since Joel joined, because he's just added to that great frequency that we seem to be able to create and enhance that, and he doesn't cringe from what we say.
He gets shit straight away. He gets
he actually gets it and enhances it, which is fantastic to have somebody who's also, doing that self-mastery journey and doing really well on it too. So it's a wonderful ride. There's so much more out there, and I tend to be well, like Andrew was saying last night, no, Laura, we'll come to that later, because he usually says to me, it's like, descale, step back a bit. It's okay, we will get there. It will all happen. I get very excited about things and about where it's going. And I think we all have a really great chemistry, and it just works really well. And ultimately, it's so that we can. There's many things on many levels. For me personally, it's working to uncover the fifth world of peace that's already here, to bring the messages of peace, to be a peacemaker, peacekeeper, hub of interconnectivity, and vanquish great dreamer of peace, celestial medium of peace, work with my dragons, all the things that those of you who've been listening to Andrew for a long time know. So that's one of our purposes, I'm sure. My personal one is just to, for this soul, this lifetime, to learn, live, love and learn. Really, I mean, it sounds a bit corny because you see it plastered on people's kitchen walls, but for me that really is a big joy of life, is just living, loving and learning, and trying to be mostly a non-agendered being, but sometimes an agenda is necessary because you're living in the world. You might be of the earth, but you're living in the world, and you have to operate within the world. And as a group, there's just so many exciting things, not just Scotland, but the many things we have, shows and things and plans we've got coming up, and the fact we've got Joel, who knows his way around a computer a lot more than I do. all technology. It's great to have him on board, and all the things he's been coming up with, and I feel, wow, you know, we've got a real professional. And I can say to my friends, oh, well, yes, we have a producer now. Which
the troll slayer.
Yes, I've never had in my life. It's sort of, yeah, it's fantastic. So I think I've said enough then, Dale, haven't I?
Yes, beautiful, Laura. Great, really, really, really cool. And that's it, I feel, with when you're getting into business relationships with other people, it's sometimes realizing, and the great thing about the uniqueness of this relationship and this business relationship, myself, Joel, Laura, Matty and Andrew, is that we do work on each other. We do the work, we do the scheduling, we make sure we have fun. And that's sometimes a lot of people can get just caught into drama straight away and they fall out over business. If you're going into a business together and people are spiritual in that business, have regular ceremonial time to each other. Make sure you share prayers and a sacred space with each other, and you go into some deep layers of healing with each other. And it really helps connect people. And I think that's the next, say, lessons which I've learned from a long time and listening to Andrew and doing my own stuff, is having ceremonial time with people is so important. And when you have ceremonial space with your friends or business partners, it kind of goes on to another stage. And it's so special to be able to have this opportunity to work with Andrew, Joel, Laura, Matty, because it's unique. And to have Andrew as a friend and ask him questions, and he will never give you instant gratification or anything what you want. It all has to be earned in the right way. And it's great to have that, to have someone and have friends who do work on themselves. And everyone out there, the inspiration comes to you now. What are you going to do today? It's Valentine's Day. Even tomorrow, do something for yourself. Give yourself a treatment. Get yourself a massage. When was the last time you did something for yourself? A lot of people forget that and they don't put any money into themselves. So this Valentine's Day, yeah, get jiggy. Go buy a toy or something from the Galactic Sex Shop. There's lots of beings out there who sell toys. Anything you want to add to that, Joel or Laura?
Go on, Joel.
Well, yeah, actually, that's a good segue. I have to leave in about 5-10 minutes because I have a sauna treatment booked in less than an hour. So
yeah, there you go.
Gift to myself.
Yeah, good.
So brilliant, man. So before you go, Joel, what's it been like for you working with the Galactic Historian then? What has it been like for you? And you came on the mentorship course, which we had an incredible last Saturday it was. Would you like to explain a little bit about that and what was going on there for you? There's some real big healings going on.
Yes. Well, working with Andrew and you guys, a completely different experience. And I've worked in hundreds of workplaces with thousands of people because I was a gig worker. So that meant often I was on a different workplace with different crewmates and different everything every day, everywhere from I've worked in recording studios to venues and everything else. And that's not to say that you don't find camaraderie in working around other people even for short periods of time. You have great short spurts of relationships where it feels like you've crossed paths with someone that you have before. But this is a lot different because I think the like-mindedness and the understanding of what we're doing, why we're here, and is it lends a hand to what the teachings are. You know, we're all doing, like you said, our own journey, and that's why we work so well together, I think. If that's enough of a word salad for you.
You know, that wasn't no word salad there, my friend. That was incredible shit.
Yeah,
definitely some chicken in that salad for that. Some extra protein.
Yep.
And that's it, is finding the time for ourselves. And we're coming to the ending closing of the show soon. And for those listening, I just want to say thank you for tuning in and watching. And we're on Rumble as well now. If you'd like to go onto Rumble, download the app. It's free to set up an account and go and follow the Galactic Historian page.
Sorry, go ahead, Dale.
go ahead, Joel. You go ahead.
Yeah, the Rumble is a unique thing. We're putting a lot of exclusive content on there. There's exclusive streams every Friday, sometimes Saturday. And we've got a couple of revocations on there that we've listed on the Rumble. So follow it. You'll find them on there. I think it was the spiritual side of censorship revocation and the doom and gloom revocation, which was censored on YouTube. So if you're looking for more content outside the box, that's where it's going to be.
Incredible, man. And that's it. And yes, Lily, that's a dream. It really is. And the great words in the contract revocation, me dreaming you, you dreaming me, and the Earth Mother dreaming all of us in this great dream. And what are we going to do in this dream to manifest and create our own choices and come out of mediocrity into a path of self-mastery and self-healing? And all it takes is your own choices, your own action, your own effort, getting over your own shit. And it is easy when you get there. It takes a while to get over the hurdles of your own self. Trust me, I know about that. Anything you want to add to that, Laura?
Oh, it's Valentine's Day. Yeah, be in love with yourself first. Nothing wrong with that, please. That is not selfish. Come away from here, read the divine masculine, read the divine feminine. Know you've been both. You've been everything all lifetimes, everything you could possibly be. Read other revocations too, yeah, but definitely those today. And know that you are divine feminine, you are divine masculine. You owe it to yourself to love yourselves. And if you want to step up and carry that torch of eldership for the 7 future generations and help co-create the 5th world of peace, or certainly uncover it, make it manifest now, as Andrew would say, then please, just support us, watch our shows, because that's ultimately what we're here to do, to bring forward the peacemakers and peacekeepers message. So keep on dreaming this into existence for us, lovely people, and thank you for sharing this Valentine's Day with us. And thank you very much, Dale, and thank you, Joel, for coming on and being an awesome producer.
Awesome. You're both awesome.
We're all awesome.
Yes, we're all fucking awesome. Woo! And so something to add to that before we close the show. So there was an episode on the Talking Stick show quite a while ago when Andrew came on. If you go back onto the Symmetry of Health page and you look for the one which says about the golden age, so it talks about 2035 and what's happening now and what's going to happen coming into 2035. I'm not going to go too much in about it on this show, but we have some incredible things lined up for coming into 2035, 2050, where we're going to be going through our great changes. And we're going to be able to see all the clans coming together on like a show like this, being able to talk healing, talk words of self-love and self-healing, because that's what we're here to do. We're here to spread the message of peace. We're here to allow people to step up by themselves, not stepping on the journey of others. So everyone here is their own self-illuminated master of the now. So again, thank you so much, everyone. I really appreciate the comments in the chat as well. We really appreciate the feedback and the connection with you. I love this new setup, Joel.
It's really good. Yeah, lots of love to you. Lots of Valentine love to you in the
lots
chat.
Of fluffy rainbows.
Yes, and unicorns.
And unicorns. Anything you want to add to that before we say goodbye, Joel?
You're muted.
You are muted.
Our production man is muted.
Oh no. I went to unmute you, then you muted yourself again. One sec. There we go. You're unmuted now.
Great show. Thanks for having me on. I'm going to use that as my cue to step out and go get my treatment.
Yeah, enjoy, Joel.
Enjoy, brother. Thank you so much, Joel. And thank you, everyone, for watching. If you're on YouTube, drop a like, drop a comment, subscribe, or go over to Rumble for the Galactic Historian page and follow that, because there will be stuff which is not going to be on YouTube or Facebook on that page. You'll be able to have conspiracy to galactic stuff. So really incredible stuff coming up. So thank you again, my wonderful co-host, Laura, the great Massey. How can people get hold of you for sessions if they are feeling stuck and want to get out into the next layer?
Laura Two Feathers. at gmail.com or twofeathersmedicine.com, or on my Facebook page. That's fine. And please also, guys, if you can share this YouTube, or what will it be on there? From
YouTube, Facebook,
or Andrew's. It will be fantastic if you could. Thank you. It's great to get the support, and we're always looking to build on that. And we so appreciate you all coming in our chat.
Incredible, Laura. And if anybody wants a psychic surgery session with myself, go on to daletobin.com and it will give you a list of my services. I also teach psychic surgery as well, in which I'll be doing a spring equinox online training. I do believe it's on the 27th of March, Monday and Tuesday. So if you want to learn the skills of psychic surgery and self-psychic surgery, treatments backwards and forwards in time, what psychic surgery means, and my own journey and processing as well. So with that said, thank you everyone again. We love you, and tune in for next week. Thank you, Laura.
Yeah, go love yourselves.
Bye guys.